don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Gate Expectations Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations Podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest to talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. This is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 43. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Crush Cards, Ruggles, Yassine, Pack, Distant Coder, and many more. My guest for this week is a former Worlds competitor. He's a multiple premier event topper and one of the best players to come out of the state of Connecticut. It is Joe Bogli. Joe, thank you so much for coming onto my podcast.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey man, absolutely, bro. And we played each other before. We've had some little fun banter throughout the events that we've seen each other at. Big reason I wanted to bring you out here today is well, first of all, I'm like your name popped up on a random drive on my way home. I'm like, man, I gotta get Joe on my podcast. So man, it's been a while since I've heard from him. So I thought I had to get you on.
Oh, absolutely.
I know you're a really skilled player. And I know that before we started talking, I said, yeah, man, the time that I played you and beat you, I'm like, that was completely luck, huge luck on my side. I pulled a horseshoe out of my ass when I played you. So and not a lot of horseshoes on your end. So
no,
I'm sure
none at all.
Yeah, so I'm sure that the rematch, if we have a rematch, the result could be a lot different. But who knows? Who knows when that'll happen, man. But a big reason why I wanted to bring you on here is that there's been a trend lately where a lot of the big name players are starting to kind of maybe fall off or maybe kind of decline a little bit or just don't put as much time to it anymore. But you're one of the players who's just remained consistent for a very long, for the past decade, especially since you got to Worlds back in 2011, which alone had to be a wonderful experience. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is just remaining so consistent in the game in regards to actually playing in it, because playing for over a decade for Yu-Gi-Oh is a long time. And then number two, your actual performance in the game has really hasn't skipped a beat, especially during the pandemic. Because when you sent me pictures of yourself, you've won an Xbox, you've won a Switch, so you've come away some really nice prizing over the past year and a half.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me? Well, actually, before we go on to that, I'm going to go off topic for a second. It's been a pretty big year for you. Congratulations again. I know you're having a child very soon.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on that, and just celebrated your birthday just over a week ago. So happy late birthday on that one. So
thank you.
Really big things coming up for you, and a big baseball MVP too as well. I don't watch a lot of baseball, but I play a lot of baseball myself.
Okay.
So I'm pretty big on it. I typically play shortstop or I play catcher.
That a boy.
Yeah. What about you?
I grew up. I was a catcher. I'm from Windsor Locks, Connecticut, so I was a catcher for 18 years from Little League up until I got into college.
Yeah.
And then I got into a car accident actually, and then I couldn't really catch anymore, so I taught myself how to pitch.
Oh, really?
And,
okay.
I'm a knuckleball pitcher, so taught myself how to do that. And then, a couple of injuries over the years. Now I mainly play first base now, a little bit of third base, and I still.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for baseball.
So do you kind of emulate R.A. Dickey in your style of pitching?
Well, I'm not a primary knuckleballer. I kind of just have it in my arsenal.
Okay.
Mainly, 4-seam, 2-seam, curveball, slider, and knuckleball. So, normal util pitching arsenal for myself.
Okay, yeah, because usually pitchers just have a 4 or 5 ball arsenal with that.
Exactly.
Is what they traditionally have.
Yep.
It's not a sports podcast though, but I mean that's something I do love. By the way, I love sports.
Of course, yes, sir.
But,
I love baseball.
So why don't you tell me more about how Yu-Gi-Oh has been for you during this pandemic? Because a lot of people have kind of slowed down or maybe taken a break because of it, but you again haven't skipped a beat at all.
I mean, when the pandemic started, I actually wasn't playing Yu-Gi-Oh at all. Yeah. So we'll go back to, what was it, last February, March, the pandemic got really serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, heavily into, weight loss and working out and just working my normal, 9-to-5 job. And then COVID happened. So I obviously all the gyms got closed and everything. Mm-hmm. So my baseball was put on hold. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just in my apartment one day and just going through let's see if I can pick this up for COVID. You know, let's see how the game has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't follow like Adamantipator, the Eldritch Synchron deck. Like I didn't follow any of that format like at all. So I was completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking to one of my best friends, Dominic Hout, shout out to him, obviously.
Yep.
He kind of just gave me the 4-1-1 on how the format was shaping up. And then, you know, with the Red Eyes Darkness Dragoon guy coming out, I was like, this card is absolutely insane. Like, I want to play this card. This card's broken. Like, this card should be banned. And then kind of just took it from there. I mean, I started off playing, you know, I'm a big Sky Striker fan. Ray is always Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a couple of my, you know, little COVID locals, nothing big, you know, 10 people at most, you know, store capacity and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was just having fun getting back to the swing of things. And then when the, you know, the Dogmatica stuff came out, the Nadir Servant, Ecclesia, and all that kind of stuff,
mm-hmm.
I got really big into that deck. I really, really liked that aspect, how Nadir Servant was like, you know, a +3. You know, it was a really, really broken card. So I, you know, started watching more Dueling Network or Dueling Book, whatever you want to call it. And the Buster Blader deck, you know, I really like that deck. And then from there on, I haven't stopped playing. You know, I've been picking up every format, you know, since then, and just playing, you know, whatever deck I'm comfortable with, and, you know, doing well with it. So.
And just recently, you started to play 60-card Prank Kids deck, if I recall
60-card
correctly.
Tower of Power, yes, sir.
Yeah, why don't you tell me more about that? Because I've seen a lot. I've only seen like Prank Kids. They try to like minimize as the deck as much as possible because you want to be able to draw one Prank Kids card to kind of start it.
Do your whole engine, yes.
And yeah, and I've seen it combined with Adamantimators, but I've never seen a 60 card. So why don't you just kind of detail me more about the deck that you ran at the Goofy Gauntlet?
Yeah, not a problem. So first I want to shout out the Goofy Gauntlet, obviously a really big size tournament that happened in Southington, Connecticut during the pandemic. So definitely shout out to my boy Joey who set that up. Great tournament organizer. Another one somewhat soon. So if you guys get a message for that, definitely come try and check it out. It's a great event. So back onto the topic of my 60 card deck. I was on Dueling Book one day watching D Hager. I don't know if that's how you say his name or whatever his real name is. And he was playing he's playing 40 card Prank Kid, and he was just consistently doing the same combo. So I was like, all right, so let's try this out. So I built a 40 card version, and I just kept drawing too many kids and too many non-starters, and I was getting really aggravated. So I went to locals one day, and there's another kid at my local who's dedicated Prank Kid player. His name's Kyle G. I can't pronounce his last name. And he plays 45 cards. I was like, all right, so let's try this. So I tried 45, still was bricking with it, still building a house, and I was getting really freaking irritated. So I was like, well, what's the problems Prank Kids was facing was when you side in and out certain cards, you can also minimize your engine, which was a big factor. So when I built my 60 card version originally, it was basically a side deck put into your main deck, which is, you know, a function of 60 cards that's always been popular over the years. So my first version was terrible. I think I went like X3 at my local of like 4 rounds. I did really bad. And then, you know, I kept working on it. And then I got comfortable with the Mystic Mind version, you know, with the metaverse and the, you know, all the traps, the floodgates, the solemns, you name it, it's in the deck. And I was playing that like religiously, you know, 3 locals a week, playing on Dueling Book, testing a lot with friends. Like I got very comfortable with my 60 card deck enough to where I would play it for a quote unquote regional or premier event if there was one coming up. So, you know, coming to the night before, talking to my girlfriend who does understand a little bit of my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. And I was like, you know what, babe? Like, I've been playing 60. I want to keep it. Like, should I change it? And she's like, no, you've been doing well with it, so why change it? I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to follow your advice. So I kept up my 60 card list, played my Tower of Power, and I went undefeated in Swiss. And then I lost in top 4 to my deck, unfortunately, bricking. I mean, it happens when you play 60 cards. You can't really do anything about it. But, I mean, all over and all, my 60 card deck is I'm still playing it to this day. Like, I haven't changed a single card in my deck.
And how do you feel that has it really helped with the consistency of the deck? You know, considering that Prank Kids they just need a 1-card starter, so like 12 Prank Kids, you need 3 of the field spell. You could play a terraforming. So really, like, just if you just get one of those cards, you get the consistency. So you still get consistency playing with 60 cards.
I am a big believer of, like, obviously, you know, the less cards, the more consistent your deck will be. But I feel like in this deck specifically, it's a 1-card starter deck. So it's kind of like, you know, a Rapier deck or a Trickstar Candina deck. Where you just see one of those cards, your whole engine's live for the whole match. Or whole game, I should say. So once you get to 1 starter piece, every other card in your hand should be either, a bomb card, a blowout card, or a stun card. That's how I built my deck.
It's kind of... Oh, go
ahead. Oh, no, just going second with my deck is actually like Prank Kid has a weakness because if you don't draw the quick play spell going second, you can't really break boards. Yeah. But if you look at my list, there is just amount. I think it's the ratio is like 32 and like 28 for going first for second cards or some number like that. Mm-hmm. And like when you break apart like one kid plus your other 4 cards in opening, it should be almost even of 2 second and 2 first cards. Mm-hmm. If you want to do it mathematically. So the way I built it, I feel like it's very, very consistent for the way you want your Prank Kid deck to function.
Yeah, and I feel like this deck kind of has the same philosophy as Salamangreats, and that was an event that you topped a PPG with that deck. It's like you just need 1 or 2 cards to be able to go off like full combo and just go with it, and then the rest of the cards like don't really help. The rest of the Salamangreat cards don't really help you out once you get started. So you want those to be like a hand trap or something to kind of stun it. So it feels like that's the exact same philosophy here with the Prank Kids. I just need 1 Prank Kid, and the rest just needs to be support or something to stop your opponent. That's kind of the same philosophy.
That's spot on, correct. I couldn't have hit the nail on the head better myself. That was spot on.
Yeah, because like because that was like the problem we had with Prank Kids when it was first built, when we didn't have the meow, because like we needed 2 to go with it. Like we had to. It was okay to have multiple cards in hand because we play like maybe 3 polymerizations, maybe 2 invocations, as like Dinkabui did. But now that we have the 1, it's like, okay, well, we can start like expanding more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And not to mention with the metaverse, the Mystic Mine, you have like those are ways that you can, if you don't get it, then you can at least like stall into it. It's almost like old school Yu-Gi-Oh, where like if you didn't have a good hand, you super conservative and like pretend that you've got something, so that way you can start drawing into stuff that you do need, because the deck only needs 1 card to get going, and once you finally do, then like it's all bets are off for you.
Yep, and once you get the 1 card, like your literal whole engine is live. So I mean, Roxy is obviously the worst Prank Kid starter, but even starting with him when you're under a Mystic Mine or you go first, like you dig for 1 more card, you still get your full combo regardless. So I mean, there's been times where I test out different variations of the deck of between 40 cards, 50 cards, 43, 47. Like I've tried a whole different number of cards, but 60 has been my sweet spot, and I'm probably going to play that up until I take a break again.
Out of curiosity, have you opted to maybe try set rotation in that deck just because there's like triple place and triple mine?
So when I first built this deck, I tried set rotation, but there were times when I resolved the desires or anything and I didn't have enough targets left. Mm-hmm. Or there was one game specifically that made me cut it completely. I was at a local and I set rotation my opponent when I was actually playing Salamangreat. Funny enough, you brought that up. Mm-hmm. And I gave him a place, and I gave myself a mine to kind of lock him out of the game. Mm-hmm. But when I flipped the mine, he just never flipped over the place, so I could never get out my own mine like I normally want to during the match. So once that happened, I was like, all right, well, a good player can obviously exploit this if they understand what my deck's purpose is. Mm-hmm. So once that happened, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to risk this again. I'm going to take it out.
Yeah, fair enough. And it only takes like one like really bad story to just warrant like a card being cut forever.
Yep, exactly.
And another thing that I notice with your deck lists as we move along, and something that I kind of follow as well, something I like to do as well, is when it comes to the side deck, you like to work in triples, like with every single card. And like, of course, like with your Prank Kids, obviously you can't run 3 Harpy's Feather Duster, but you at least ran 2 red reboots that kind of simulated the same effect as Harpy's Feather Duster in that case to kind of make up for it. It's something that I like to do, and it's also nice when you get to write out your deck list of regionals. It's like, okay, this is so easy to write. Yeah. But can you explain to me more about that kind of philosophy and on why you like to continually just put in like 5 triples in your side deck?
Sure. So back from like my first top of nationals in 2011 up until I'll say my last quote unquote top at the Goofy Gauntlet. Yeah. A lot of experience with side decking. Like I personally think side decking is my best asset to my gameplay. I've become very, very knowledgeable with siding, and that has definitely helped me over the last decade, 100% sure. And I grant a lot of my wins based on my side decks and how I build them. So going with the triplicate strategy is, if you're having 1 card, like say if it's back, we'll say 2000, we'll say 15 or whatever, we'll say like hat format, you're not going to want to side like one, we'll say one like Malevolent Catastrophe or something, to blow out a hat matchup. you want a card that it's a blowout card, so you're going to want to see it as often as possible. So when you do triplicates, it gives you obviously one, higher odds of drawing it, two, the consistency to see that card, which obviously you want to see in your opening hand, or your 6th card or 7th card, 8th card. But with a Mystic Mind, you're gonna see those cards. So you kind of got to think about it in that aspect where if you're getting past the early game state, you're going to see your 3-ofs because there's obviously 3 of them in your deck. So once you get past turn 1, if your deck can grind, you will see all the cards you want if they're 3-ofs. Go ahead.
And like the kind of the philosophy in that is that when you're side decking like 3 cards, you want to access like said blowout cards as fast as possible to be able to like keep the game broken on your end to keep it going. You could make the argument that like if you just kind of overkill and just draw too many of like the game breaking cards, but you just need one. That's the argument that you could put against it, but that could be offset again by if you just get that one card, maybe that -1 in your hand when you don't have like 2 evenly matched. We'll say, for example, if you already set one off, you're already in a dominant position at that point. So the other neg that you have doesn't matter.
Exactly. And there are times where, say, if you happen to, we can use evenly for example. Say if you get one off, there could possibly be a chance where they twin twist you, or maybe they evenly you back or something, where you can still get your second one off, and then it's a blowout again. So all the 3-ofs that I happen to play in the last Prank Kid deck, they're all bomb cards whenever you can actually resolve them. So even if you go back to, I think, even my Salamander deck or even my Sky Striker deck, rest in peace, Engage. All of my decks are 99% triplicates of side deck cards because I want to see them as quick as possible. I want to get the game over as soon as possible. And it's as simple as that. I want to win.
Yeah, and not to mention, too, like, again, if we go with evenly matched right now, that like negate, like that's an omni negate right off the bat. So if you just happen to get that second copy of evenly matched, then you can just fire it off again and just keep retaining advantage as well. So there's at least some advantage when you keep having like multiples of one card. Like if you have like with evenly matched, then you and just kind of go unfettered. It's an insurance policy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I know that you also did that very same thing too with that Cosmo deck you used when we played each other. YCS
15 monsters in that side deck.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm like, yeah, he's truly with the triplets philosophy here, and that's something I always like. Yeah, so and I completely understand it. And but what happens about the? I know I kind of touched it, but what happens with the cards that like are like restricted to one that you like that is just absolutely imperative in the side deck, like let's say Heavy Harpy's Feather Duster? How would you offset like the other like 2 spots that you can't obviously fill in with 2 copies of?
So I mean, in hindsight, hindsight 2020, if you see Harpies in your 60-card deck, it's obviously good, right?
Yeah.
So when you have to fill those other 2 spots, obviously Red Reboot does act as another back row blowout kind of card in hindsight. To go with that, like the last spot I used was Pankratops, because obviously if you see it, it's great. If you don't see it, it's not the end of the world. It's just a bomb card when you do see it. But with Prank Kids specifically, you do have a Link 4 that is Harpy's Feather Duster. So when you get to the point where you can use Harpies, Red Reboot, even your RIP Roaring Rooster in your extra deck, they all act as a bomb card for back rows. So to offset the one of with those other. I felt they're too important to not play, but you kind of have to play them.
Yeah, and maybe you could argue that you could use maybe Twin Twisters as an alternate, maybe Cosmic Cycle, something that like applies like a very similar effect to that one of as like part of the side deck.
Exactly. So if you apply, I main deck 3 Cosmics in that deck because I felt like a 1-for-1 removal with your 1-card engine deck is obviously always going to be important. But so personally, I'm not a fan of Twin Twister in Prank Kids. I'm a very, very big fan of Twin Twister as a card in general. But in Prank Kids, I'm not the huge fan because, it is a one-card starter deck. But the way I built my deck is I don't necessarily want to always discard a card from my hand because a lot of my cards are very reactive to my opponent. So if I'm getting rid of a card to try and blow them out, and they happen to stop me with a hand trap, or they could have their own back row that's going to stop my summon or something, I've just lost one card to keep me in the game another turn. So that's why I didn't like Twin Twister in my deck specifically.
Yeah, because it's one less card that with utility, and especially again as we go back to talking about like Salamander Greats and Prank Kids being that like that 1-card starter, like every single card in your hand like will matter as a form of interaction with your opponent, and like the more cards, the more negates, the more disruptions that you have against it, like the better off you're going to be in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of really liked about and noticed about your prank kids, that there are so many like hand traps, disruptors, anything to kind of solve the game in case like it doesn't keep going.
Yep.
Like you had it, so you had that nice little balance in between, and that's what I like did when I played Salmon Greats for the first time. I had 15 hand traps in there because I knew like I just need 1 or 2 cards.
You need 1
to get started, and then once I get started, that's it. It's over. And then everything else is like you're not going to do anything. It just sucks though if your opponent goes first and you don't happen to draw a hand trap, then it's like, oh, this is hell to watch.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! It's going to happen eventually. It happens. It happens.
That it is. So what made you decide to want to play like prank kids in this format?
Well, I mean, as you can probably tell of all my credentials, I usually don't play the meta deck.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan of like how shout out to Jeff Jones, the best rogue innovator and deck builder of all time, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big advocate of playing something different, thinking outside the box, and just being comfortable. If you know your deck better than your opponent knows your deck, you have an advantage off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with prank kids especially, not a lot, like people obviously know, oh, make sure you twin twister in the standby phase, things like the little niches that beat the deck, but they really don't understand the whole functions of the prank kid deck.
Mm-hmm.
And to exploit that with the way I built my deck, I'll say it on the limb. I built my deck to fit my play style, and not a lot of people obviously have the same play style as another player.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, people can say, "Oh, your deck looks garbage. Your deck looks trash." It's like that's your opinion. If you tried it, you probably wouldn't have success with it like I possibly would, or another player would, because no one plays the same way.
Yeah.
You can teach someone how to play your deck, but will they play it like you? Probably not.
Yeah, definitely not, for sure. Because
so that's definitely I'm a very, very big advocate of thinking outside the box, finding a card you enjoy, use it to its potential. Definitely try and exploit it the best way you can, and give yourself an edge over your opponent.
So with that being said, how do you like get the courage or have the testicular fortitude to be able to like run these kinds of decks that are like like less popular, that aren't quite quote unquote like as like top tier as like some of the other decks, and but like still have success with it?
It's a big boost of confidence. It's all about confidence. If I go into a tournament with a rogue deck, say if I went to a YCS tomorrow, I would 99.9% be playing my 60 card prank kid deck. Could that change? Most certainly. If say someone shows me a deck that I really, really enjoy, that could certainly change. People quote unquote snake charm to play a deck. But when I build my decks, I don't always build the meta deck. I usually build my decks to beat the meta.
Okay.
Because I'm not a big fan of playing meta decks, because I don't like playing mirror matches if I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Certain mirror matches are obviously very enjoyable, and it also shows the skill of a player when you play a mirror match. Obviously, the luck is a factor. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, you can't do anything about it. But Sky Striker, for example, I absolutely love the Striker mirror match. I got very good at the Striker mirror match. Definitely one of my favorite mirror matches of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Even going back to when I started playing mirror matches back in 2011. With the Tengu Plant mirror matches, myself, Cesar Gonzalez, Stefan, Pinckney, we would all play hours and hours on end, and it pays off when you really learn the mirror match.
Mm-hmm.
But when the meta is going to be 1 to 2, maybe 3 decks, give or take, now there's about 3 top tier decks. You can build a comfortable deck for yourself to beat them. And as long as you're very confident in the deck you build, you will see success.
And when you like have these matches against other people, like do you find that they're really thrown off a lot by when you're playing these non-meta decks, or not the top deck decks?
100%.
So it's like, what happens when you like run across somebody that absolutely knows how your deck works, like even if when you're trying to like catch them off guard with kind of like an off-meta deck?
They can know what my deck does, but they still have to beat me in the end of the match. I mean, it's simple as when I started playing my 60 card deck at my locals, people knew what my deck's purpose was and how I played it. People can watch my play style, and what, they can know all those things, but guess what, they still have to beat me. Or be somebody else, for an example. Not to put myself on a pedestal, but you get my point.
Yeah, so exactly that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They can know everything about your deck. They can know how it works. They can know your win condition. But at the end of the day, they still have to beat you 2 games out of 3 to make themselves the winner of the match. So
And it really goes back to, again, where you said, it's easy saying it's not always about the deck. It's also about the pilot of the deck as well. Because again, like everybody
Exactly.
has their own play style, everything like that. So, and like there's been so many times where like I've had like the same deck and I've handed it off to like another person to play. Like they would like borrow my deck for the tournament or something like that, and they completely play it. Like even though they know how to play it, completely different from the way I play. Because again,
Exactly.
everybody has that style. Like maybe sometimes I don't want to set all my spell trap cards. Maybe I'll set like a couple instead or like that. Because even though there's no heavy storm anymore, is that there's still a lot of blowout cards out there. And if you
I mean,
happen to
everyone has their quirks. Everyone has their tendencies. I mean, you know yourself the best when you're playing at what you want to do. Like there's a big not I don't want to say controversy, but there's a big upside and also downside of testing with other great players, because not everyone's advice could be the same, but when you're in game, everyone's play style is different, so the result might be different how you do your line of play.
Yeah. So. And then, speaking of which, as you mentioned before, and I know that you also mentioned this when you were interviewed at Worlds, you said that you worked a lot with Cesar Gonzalez, who really helped you like kind of develop your game. I think you've had some like affiliation with Patrick Hoban. You used to write for ARG.
I used to be on ARG with Pat, Joe Girlando, Paul Clark, Frazier. I was on ARG and like the skeleton at ARG back when Pat started his tear through every tournament he ever went to.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me more about like being affiliated with ARG and how that's kind of helped you kind of hone your skill as being a Yu-Gi-Oh duelist?
Let's see. Well, back then that was around 2012-ish area, give or take. And I only had 2 tops to my name at that time. I topped nationals, obviously, and then I got top 64 at YCS Long Beach. And then after then, honestly, I didn't top for almost 2 full years. I took a big break 2012 from Long Beach up until Atlanta 2014. I didn't top a single event. Like I topped a couple regionals, but I didn't do any premier topping. I was down on myself as a player. But in that gap, from that 2-year gap, I bubbled almost every single YCS I went to. I was on like a 8 or 9 bubble every single event. This is while I was also on ARG. So, and the only reason I basically got on ARG was Alex Van Sant. One of my best friends, he's an amazing person, amazing guy. Everyone loves, hey, it's tea time, boys and girls. Everyone loves him. And it was we're at Gen Con 2000 in, I believe it was 2012. I was doing the Duel to Master with Billy Brake.
Yep.
And Van Sant was at the ARG booth that with Jim, Jim and Brad, the owners of ARG at the time. And Van Sant was just talking to me. Him and I were always close. We just never really had a good, outside of Yu-Gi-Oh experience, I should say.
Yep.
So we all went out to dinner one night. We're just, talking the night away. And he's like, "Hey, Joe, would you be interested in, writing a couple articles for ARG?" I was like, "Yeah, sure thing. I love writing. I went to school for English, so I have no problems writing." And from there on out, I wrote a couple articles, once a week, once every other week. And then the owner, Jim, was like, "Hey, would you be interested in, repping the squad up? People love your articles." I was like, "Of course I would. I have no problems doing that. I appreciate the offer and everything." And then from there on, I got closer with Frazier Smith. I got, closer with Pat. I was already close to Joe Girlando and Paul Clark because they lived pretty close to me at the time.
Yep.
And then, going from there, I just watched everyone kind of grow. Jeff and Pat, Joe doing his, 8 or 7 or 8 YCS streak in a row of topping. And, obviously I didn't have success myself, but I was still, in the loop of what people were going to be playing and still talking to them and testing and all, the whole 9 yards, of Yu-Gi-Oh! And, it really shaped me as a player because once I stopped, once I got to like the end of that couple of years of bubbling, I kind of took it upon myself to like, all right, you know what? I'm not bad. I'm just unlucky. And I'm going to prove something to myself. I'm going to do this. And that's kind of when I decided to leave, the quote unquote ARG team. I took my, I was like, you know what? I don't feel worthy. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to take a break. I took, I think, a 7 or 8 month break from Yu-Gi-Oh! And just kind of focus on myself and my life. And then, I came back at the end of like the Dragon Ruler format, when the Dragons went to 1 and then Wolf Bart came out and then, Fire Fist, obviously my favorite deck of all time besides Goki. And then I just went on, I went 11-0 in Swiss, my first YCS back from taking my break. And then the very next month, I got top 8 again. I went back-to-back top 8s with Fire Fist. And from there on out, every about a year or so, I'll take a break. Usually I'll take a summer off for baseball. Or, if I don't enjoy the format, I just don't play it. If some formats get kind of stale, I mean, you know how Yu-Gi-Oh gets.
Yep, of course.
And I'll take a format or two off if I don't like the game. I mean, I'm sure everyone else has the same story once in a while. And I owe a lot of my previous success to obviously for Pat. Pat was probably the greatest technical player and skillful mindset of the game's ever seen. And watching him get all of his success and listen to his theories and his ideas behind building decks, like it just puts you on a whole different level.
What was it like being able to like interact with like Hoban on a like a regular or at least like semi-regular basis to kind of help yourself get better in the game?
He was just so smart. Like like listening to Jeff and Joe and all of them, they're of the game, the Mount Rushmore, you'll see some of those faces on there, right?
Yep.
But when you actually have like an actual Yu-Gi-Oh conversation with these, I'm gonna say these men, they just their minds are just so smart when it comes to deck building and ideas and play style, and I just felt so insuperior. Oh my god. Pat, I will say it on record. Pat Hoban is probably the greatest player of all time. And that's he earned it every ounce of the way. I mean, he is one of the best to ever touch a Yu-Gi-Oh card and sleeve up a PC White.
Yeah, because once he like came to notoriety with the Yu-Gi-Oh community, like he had like some of the big wins in such a very short amount of time. I think he was like just 3 years and he's already won I think at least 2 events, and then he won like a lot of like I think it was the ARG events. Yeah, the ARGs as well.
He won I think like 7 or 8 of those things.
Yeah. So like he was probably one of like the streakiest players out there. And of course, he's not really. As far as I know, he's not really playing the game anymore. I think he's kind of like dipped a little bit more into like the political side of the world.
Yeah. And he still has his own, I think his own company now too, the Parvenu or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So like, I mean, he's definitely a smart man, and he's definitely like, made a great name for himself. Like I think like, he was been talked about like throughout those years. Like he's been like constantly talked about, and like he was like the center of like a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh conversations. It's like that, the generational talent that we would have, like that we would see in sports. Like it's like right now we got like Mike Trout. He would be one of the most generational talents right now in baseball. But Hoban would probably be that of that period of like the early 2010s, like early mid 2010s. Yes, that would be like one of those things.
Yes. I agree completely.
I mean, you could argue right now that like maybe Jesse Cotton could be like after Hoban, after Hoban like kind of stopped. Sure. But we see these generational talents that come along, and Hoban, you could definitely argue, if not like almost undisputedly, like be the one that was in that. And I've had the pleasure of being able to watch Hoban, never talk to him, but I've definitely had to watch him play. It's a completely different level when you see him play.
For sure, I agree completely.
Yeah, absolutely that. So, and that's always like one thing I always tell everybody to, if you want to get better, it's like, don't become the smartest person in the room. Like learn from all these other bigger players, better players. Like they'll help you. Like right now, information is like so free right now, especially with the internet. Like we didn't have a whole lot of this back in the day. Maybe like YouTubing was just like deck lists and just like watching other people's duels. Now it's evolved to something else. Now we have so much information at our hands, and we've been there in the struggle before, but the information's so easy now to get.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that being, like being able to hang out with these bigger players, like, that's what helps you become bigger and better. And that's why, like, if I ever like see a new player around, like I know they're good, it's like now I want to get more affiliated with them, more associated with them, and that's how I get better. I mean, that's how I got my YCS top when we had to play each other. Like I talked with another player who was just kind of more like newer in the game, but then I trained him. Then he went out, learned a lot more. Then he trained me, and that's how I got so much better. And it's like, that's kind of like the problem when you're at the top of the totem pole. It's like it might get a little bit hard to learn, so you really have to like adapt and work hard to like really find ways to like get yourself better. But like definitely learning from other people. Like, and Caesar, he was one of the other people that you said that that was there, and he was probably one of the better players that was in the late 2000s before he kind of stopped around. And again, also like one of those like generational talents that was around as well. So I don't know how long you've been playing the game for. Just why don't you just answer that really quickly for me?
Well, obviously, everyone plays when they're a kid, in grade school and everything. I started playing competitively, like traveling to regionals and like YCSs in very early 2010.
Okay, so you were still there while like Caesar was pretty much at like the peak of his career, so to say.
Like Teledad Caesar, where everyone knows him from.
Yeah.
That was, I think, I believe 2009. So when I first started traveling, my first ever like big event was YCS Virginia, which was when like the Infernity deck, the Dark Soul, like Herald of Perfection. That was the first event that deck came out. So it was right after Jeff Jones won the 75th anniversary Shonen Jump, I believe.
Yeah, in New Jersey.
Edison, yeah. So I didn't go to any YCS before that event. I would never traveled before ever because I was baseball in college, blah 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 blah. So then when I traveled to that event, it's actually funny. I had a round 2 feature match against Jesse Samek, and I got my butt kicked.
Yeah.
And ever since that day, I was like, you know what? This atmosphere is amazing. The people here are great. I'm gonna do this whenever I get a chance. So from I believe it was like April, maybe May of 2010, I want to say. It's when I really took playing seriously. So
yeah, and that's quite the funny event for you to kind of start off with, considering that was like the biggest event ever when it was held. So, and I know it was a little bit chaotic because the judge staff was I don't want to say like wasn't well equipped per se, but like they had a lot tougher time because there was a lot more people out there. So I mean that had to be a really funny impression for you, seeing how like how that event was run compared to like subsequent events after that you've been to.
Yeah, I loved it.
I mean, it was a fantastic event. I loved it too.
Yeah, I loved the atmosphere of not even just the chaos or the scrambling of people and judges. I loved obviously from playing sports. I love the competitive nature.
Yeah,
just the kind of person I am. I'm very competitive when it comes to things. If I'm taking it seriously, I want to do my best to put my best foot forward. So when I was there, like I did not do well at all. I think I went like 3-3 drop or 4-3 drop. Like I didn't make it to the end of day 1. I was still new. I still didn't know a lot of things, but you know what? That didn't stop me from going to the next event and trying harder. So when you can take your losses and turn them into positive mementos, that really does shape your dueling ability.
Yeah, it really does too. And like when you have these like positive experiences, like you only want to get more and more into them. Like you want to do them again and again and again. And again, this goes like back to sports. When you have like a positive experience, you want to keep playing the game, and you start developing a love for it, or any other hobby for that matter.
Yes.
And you just want to strive to get better. Like I'm also a very competitive person. I love like winning. I always want to get better. And when you're surrounded by this great atmosphere in these YCSs, because I love them, because you want to come back again and again and again.
Exactly.
And I always want to do that. And of course, like being with like the people around, the friends, it's been a recurring theme on my podcast, but just being around the people that you're there is always awesome. Like every time you and we see each other, we always just say, hey, what's up, how you doing? Have a like quick conversation.
Always been a pleasure. Yep, always been a pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. We always have like a nice quick conversation, because we know that we're probably going to see each other like twice, maybe 3 times a year. So like we kind of cherish the moment that we have together. Even if it's just 5 minutes of talking, we at least like have the courtesy to say, hey, what's going on, Joe? It's been a while since I've seen you. How you been doing? And now like and of course now we can't really do that as much, although things are starting to open up a little bit more now, at least for the United States, that we're starting to see some locals come back in now, even with the pandemic. How is it in Connecticut actually, as far as the pandemic is concerned?
I currently play at 3 different locals in Connecticut. Actually, we have three mainstream stores that do host Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. My main local is actually ran by Cesar Gonzalez. He actually owns my local.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's based. I'm not sure if he's a co-owner, but he's definitely in charge of all the gaming aspect.
Yeah.
It's a most excellent gaming and collectibles out in Enfield, Connecticut. It's probably the biggest room for Yu-Gi-Oh, and obviously it's an amazing local, very competitive. It's a very, very good local. And I mean, shout out to them. They're also opening a new location out in Manchester, Connecticut, which is actually next to my apartment, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
And then the second local would be the Grid Games in Manchester, Connecticut as well. It's a smaller local, but for competitive wise, we have a bunch of people in there who has multiple YCS accomplishments, a couple national toppers. It's pretty competitive. The third local is Imperial Gaming and Collectibles, I believe. It's in Southington. We're co-hosts of that Goofy Gauntlet. Once again, it's another good local, very competitive. I mean, honestly, Yu-Gi-Oh in Connecticut has grown so much over the last decade of me playing. I've seen people grow from when I was just starting, and they're still stuck in the game, and they're topping YCSs, a couple nationals. Like the gaming area around me is growing, and that makes me just want to be better still.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, obviously, I want all my friends to succeed, but there's sometimes where I still want to be the top man at the totem pole.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way too. It's like that. That's what I want to be. Like, I still want to be the top man, but I still want to like build my community up and get better. Because I've always said this: when you build the community to get better and better, then
Everyone
you
just gets
yourself, yeah, everyone, will, including yourself, even the best will get better from a
Agreed.
much better community. So that's why I
Yes.
always want to build that community. Of course, there's got to be something in it for myself too,
Of course.
which is, of course, get better. Nothing wrong with that. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get better but again, it's a win-win situation in that regard.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's great. What's the name of Cesar Gonzalez's shop, by the way? I don't think you said it.
It's Most Excellent Gaming and Collectibles.
Okay, and do you know how long that's been around for, roughly?
Oh my God, that local has been around since before I started playing.
Oh, really? And
so they used to be based in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And over the years, I think he's gone from big store to store and just grew his building size bigger. I think every single time he's moved, he's got a bigger store.
Yeah.
So my first time ever going there was actually my junior year of high school. I wasn't playing Yu-Gi-Oh at all, and I went to the local mall, and there was a shop there, and I was like, oh, let's go in here and check it out. So I go in there, and I see people playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I go in there, I start talking. I was like, oh, what days do you have locals? Blah, blah, blah. And I just got my driver's license, so I just want to drive everywhere. And I leave there, I go home, and I look for my old Yu-Gi-Oh cards because I still had them, I just never played. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Let's try and go to a local. Let's have some fun and kind of just blow off a Friday night. Have some fun with some friends, some new friends I can make.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I've dedicated to that store. I put a lot of money into that store. I try and help that store grow. I do. I kind of, quote unquote, work there, and I help Cesar get inventory for his locals. Like,
yep.
I do everything I can to help them because they help me grow as a player.
Yeah, that's kind of a common sentiment for a lot of players. They want to try to help their store because they want to preserve it, they want to defend it because like if that goes under, it's like, okay, well, where else do you go? Because like luckily for you, you've got three places, but there's a lot of places in America that are like much smaller cities and whatnot. They might only have one store, so they want to do whatever they can to preserve that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's always been a big thing. That's always been a big like common theme for myself. It's always like preserving and building like a Yu-Gi-Oh community, because if you don't have it, it's like, well, your options are really limited, and it really kills your ability to be able to play like in real life dueling, which I'm sure everybody right now is wanting to get back to with this whole pandemic happening.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait. I mean, even though I do have my son being born in less than a month. Mm-hmm. If there happens to be a YCS announcer, I'm gonna try and make it if I can. Maybe have the little man and girlfriend come with me if they're up to it for a little vacation. But
yeah, I mean that's what I kind of do with my girlfriend. So like when there's like an event, like for example Niagara Falls, because that's very close to me. I could say like hey babe, you can come along with me to Niagara Falls, and you can just kind of enjoy yourself here while I go play Yu-Gi-Oh, and then after I'm done we'll meet up again and we'll go have some fun out there, like and exactly. Any other various locations. Make a vacation out of it. Or yeah, something like that. Or like for in case next weekend, what I do is I want to go golfing on both days, but that's a lot of time away from her. So I'd like, okay, I gotta maybe bribe her a little bit. So if you have to, maybe you have to bribe your girlfriend a little bit so that that you can go away for an event if even after you have your newborn son. Which congratulations again, by the way. I'll say that again.
Thank you.
So what was your feeling then when you were finally able to like return yourself to real life dueling?
I'm not really quote unquote afraid of this pandemic. I obviously everyone has their own opinion and beliefs on it, and I respect them entirely. Mm-hmm. My opinion on it is I've very rarely, knock on wood, get sick, period.
Yeah.
My immune system, I drank out of a garden hose as a kid.
Who hasn't? First of all,
I know exactly. Our generation is all full of that.
right. Yeah, because you just turned 30. I'm 33, so like I'm definitely with you on that kind of generation.
Basically the same age.
Yeah.
And so I very rarely will get sick. When it started happening, I respected everyone's decisions about closing up their places and all the whole let's close until everyone gets vaccinated and this whole blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And then once locals started happening in person, I was a little hesitant because I didn't know how everyone else would feel about it, kind of thing.
Yep.
So the first local I went back to was actually the Imperial one. They were very COVID cleanse, hand sanitizing every table, make sure the distance was spread apart. Everything was, to the T of staying safe. And I was very appreciative that they went out of their way to do all of that. So then once other locals, started opening up and started doing the same procedures, it doesn't feel like anything was different.
Okay, so it just felt like it was just kind of normal, whatever. Just everything.
It was. Obviously, it wasn't the same because some people were a little hesitant. Oh, just cut your deck in half. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Or sit farther across from the table and be more cautious. That's I respected everyone's opinions. I respected their wishes. Sometimes I personally didn't mind it if someone cut my deck. It's not the end of the world.
Yep.
But everyone has their own their grasp and interpretation of this whole pandemic.
Yep. I mean, last summer when Canada kind of opened up a little bit, I would start to have some people over at my house. I'd probably invite like 5-6 people over to my house, and like we would kind of space ourselves a little bit. And I have a sunroom where I could have like duelists like play in like my sunroom and whatnot, and that's kind of outdoors. So and so I would have some people when things would open up too. I too didn't have as much like fear of the virus that was going around, but at the same time I still like respected it and didn't say it didn't exist. I still honored as if it was still there, but I kind of understood like the kind of the limitations that I could have with, and understood if what I was doing could be safe or not. So that's just kind of the take that I had. Like I understand, again, I'm kind of like you. I understand that a lot of people would have some like concerns over doing these kinds of things, and again, it's sure that it all just takes is like one bad thing to just kind of throw the world in turmoil, as this whole thing kind of started out as.
Yep, exactly.
But when you know that, and you're doing something like when you're doing conditions safe, because you can do it properly. Like we see it all like in grocery stores, like retail stores, everything's kind of doing it, like trying to do it by the book to prevent it from happening. So if you know that you can do that in your own home, like if you want, you can endorse people to wear masks, you can have people, like you can sanitize your doorknobs and whatnot if you have to, like take some extra precautions like everyone else does. Like you can make that argument that you could at least have some like safe dueling in that sense.
Exactly. Yep, I agree completely.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did. And like the responses I had from like my friends that came over to my house, it was like Bowie, please, can you do this again? Like we love that you did this. Like we miss Yu-Gi-Oh so much. And
exactly.
I loved it. I loved it. Like I don't know if a lot of the people that at your local kind of had like the same thought or didn't get to play as much in real life Yu-Gi-Oh because of the whole pandemic, but like their thoughts of being able to come back and finally play again.
I mean, some people obviously had they just wanted to get out the house kind of thing. They've been cooped up for so long. They just want to get out and do something.
Yeah.
And then you get the other people who are just, come to a local just to, see their friends, and then they're not being, real, like, not really close because, they have the fear of the pandemic and the virus, and they just still want to see everybody, which obviously is appreciative, but, everyone has their limits and boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely that, because I'm sure we've all had friends where like there's some who are just completely like afraid of it or just like really cautious about it, where they don't want to do any contact, and then there's some friends who's like, yeah, sure, we'll give a hug, I don't care, let's do a handshake. You get those kind of people. It's just sometimes it just can be a little bit tricky to navigate when you're kind of meeting like newer people for the first time. It's like, okay, like handshake, elbow bump, like I don't know what to do here. Like sometimes you get that. So with that being said, did you do a lot of remote dueling then during this whole pandemic?
Zero.
I
am not a fan of remote duels whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that boat, but like I'm craving Yu-Gi-Oh so much right now that I'm willing to do it now just until things open up.
Because, not me. You will. Yep. I can count. I've played in 4, maybe 5 remote tournaments since COVID started.
Oh, really? Wow.
I'm not a fan of remote duels. I'm a very big fan of person-to-person interaction with cards,
Me too.
Body language, and seeing their eyes. Like that wouldn't. Man, I stress this enough when I play someone, like how you can get reads off them, and their quirks and their little their pitches they do and they're playing. Like I'm a big believer in like you can pick up someone's, quote unquote, their sense of what they have, making a read, and Remote Duels is very hard to do that.
Yeah, it really is. And I had this very same conversation too with Thunderpants about this exact same conversation of being able to like getting so much information about your opponent like before and while you play the game. And like it's really critical to be able to, have a conversation with who you're playing against, and not to mention like observe them as well. That's like a big part of that's a huge part of my game when I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And like Remote Duels like really like affect how that how I can really implement that strategy.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I am a very big person when it comes to seeing tells and reads and body language. Like when I'm playing like face to face or person to person, I just play so much better. I'm more comfortable. I mean, not saying like I can't play from my own house and be comfortable, obviously, but there's just I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, and that's how I felt too when you and I had our match together at the top 32 of YCS Toronto. Like even though I won, and when I played you, like you were seeing, even though I thought like I had you back against the wall, the whole time you were relatively calm, you were cool. Like it looked like nothing fazed you at all. Even like when you were looking at a losing situation, like you were completely calm. It's like, okay, whatever, he's doing that. Like I felt like you were zeroing in on me when we were playing, and that's always like really dangerous because that also makes it really difficult to make reads on that. If you keep acting the same way the whole entire way, it makes it really hard to make a read on your opponent.
Bingo.
Yeah. Well, thankfully you're not quite as quiet and cold outside of the Yu-Gi-Oh table, because I know.
People. It's funny you say that because like people will come to the local now and they'll see me play or they'll watch me play and they're like, "Oh man, you're good," or "Oh man, I didn't know you were like this outside of watching YouTube videos or whatever." It's like, guys, I'm just a normal person.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like I'm really like I'm a great person to be around. I love making people laugh. I love having a good time. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a past hobby, I do to get out the house.
Yeah,
and it just so happens
really
I happen to be good at it. Like it's not the end of the world. Like even if I was bad, I would still be the same person.
Yeah, that's fair. It always is, and like it's just when you're kind of like in the moment right now. It's like, let's say like we're up to bat in baseball right now. Like I'm like zeroed in, unless it's like I'm playing like some kind of like beer league. It's like, okay, whatever, I'll joke around and play. But if I'm like playing like in a competitive league, like I'm zeroed in. I'm not talking. I'm like my eyes are locked. My eyes are locked on the pitcher. It's like I'm ready to go. Like let's duel here. Let's do this.
Yep.
No pun intended on the dual part, but that's what I mean. Like you're just in a different mental state when you're out there on the field, and it's completely like different. But again, like when it's more like bush league or anything like that, then that's where like I'll joke around, I'll have fun. But
of course.
Yeah. But that's like you'll get me the most loudest because like I'm that. If you ever see me in baseball, I'm gonna be that really noisy, loud guy that's always calling where the play is, what base do you have to throw to, how many outs are there. I'm always reeling into it, and it annoys the ever living hell out of the other team, and that's kind of also like maybe like a psychological thing too. It's like I'm annoying the other team. It's like, okay, well that's gonna throw them off the game maybe when they're batting, because I'm always like being that loudmouth guy, even though I'm not trash talking them. I'm just trying to help my own team out.
You're playing the game it's meant to be played.
Yeah,
it's that simple. You're playing it to how you want to play it, and that's why I love baseball. I love it more than I love Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah,
I mean, baseball to me, it shaped me. It shaped my youth, shaped me growing up. But you know what? I actually learned a lot from Yu-Gi-Oh! I learned from baseball.
Yeah, why don't you tell me some of these parallels?
Yeah, that's fine. So like like how you brought up like keeping your composure and staying cool. It's the same concept as if you're say I'll use our match for example. Like game 1, I drew terrible. Game 3, I drew terrible, but you didn't know that.
Yep.
Game 2, I drew very subpar, and I happened to draw Regeki to come back and win in one turn. But like outside of that, like I drew very bad our entire match.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept. Say if you're in the batter's box, and, you get a couple outside pitches that the calls, like they call them strikes. You can't do anything about that. You got to stay cool, adjust your mindset now. And you know what? Try not to strike out. And then say if you're getting if you're in the opposite, if you're a pitcher, it's the same exact thing. Your object is to get the guys out, whether it's striking them out, pop out, ground out, whatever. And you have to. It's the same mindset. You got to stay cool, calm, and collected to do your job. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, your job is to obviously win the match. Yep. So at the end of the day, or end of the at bat, or end of the if you're pitching, whatever analogy you want to use, it's better to stay on one track mind and stay cool the entire way.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is, because like, you know, when I'm batting and I'm 0-2, for example, now I got to think, okay, if I'm gonna swing, I at least have to make contact with every ball that comes my way now, or else I'm obviously going to be out, even if it's foul,
Sure.
whatever, make contact.
Sure.
But of course, when you're the pitcher, when it's 0-2, then it's like, okay, now I can start maybe throwing some. I can throw some curve balls. I can throw some changeups, whatever I have to do to kind of psych them out. So
Yep, exactly.
and like when in the battle, I'm like, okay, I can't overthink. I don't want to I can't get in my own head. My whole mission is let's just make contact with the ball every time I've got to make the swing. That's my mentality when I do it. And that's
Yep.
like, and then again, when we go to Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like when my back is against the wall, it's like, calm down, take it easy, don't panic, because this, you know, time's not as quite as pressuring in Yu-Gi-Oh. You have a little bit more time to think, as opposed to like thinking like 5 seconds in between pitches. But
Sure.
you
Sure.
know,
Sure.
it's all about keeping calm, keeping cool, and just like, let's, you know, once you draw your new card, it's like, okay, what's the situation you can present yourself with to get out of this jam that you're in? Kind of the same
Yep.
thing with baseball too.
Bingo.
Yeah, and so like, again, like, I don't like panicking at all when like I play Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I've done it before. Admittedly, I've panicked a couple times, but more often than not, I always try to keep my cool and not try to express so much emotion while I'm out there, because all that are easy tells for all the pro players.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So like, oh my god. Man, I never thought we'd be like dissecting so much into baseball with Yu-Gi-Oh! Now I've done like poker, but now we're getting to
Telling you,
baseball,
man,
and you know,
Yu-Gi-Oh, you can relate to hundreds of different things as long as you have the same mindset for all of them. It's literally everything.
Yeah, and again, it's like it's the spirit of competition with it. Like, we're both competitive, especially in baseball, and that's kind of the same way in Yu-Gi-Oh. I will say different credentials when it comes to that, you and I, but that's all right. I'm gonna just kind of cough and just meekly walk away on that one. But it's that competitive spirit that baseball gives you, because I grew up playing it too when I was a kid. I think I was 6 years old when I started. I was playing softball, so like the pitches
Yep.
are still pretty fast
Sure.
for like as you grow up and whatnot. And you know, but you learn a lot from it. And I think one thing that's really good with sports is that it really teaches you to hold yourself accountable for things. Because like when you mess up, like it's hard to hide messing up when you mess up in baseball. It's clear as day if you screw up.
Yep.
Like if you,
But so the thing is, though, is if you think about it that way, if you relate that mess up to when you mess up in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's the same concept.
mm-hmm.
If you mess up in baseball and you make an error, everyone's gonna look at you, right? Everyone's gonna be like, oh, they might point a finger or try and put you down. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you get another play hit to you, you'll do the best you can and stay cool and make the play.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
put that into Yu-Gi-Oh, and say if you we'll just say make a big misplay. I'm not gonna use any exact specific examples, but you get what I'm saying. Where if you make a big misplay and it's very noticeable, you know what? The match isn't over yet until your life points go to 0 or any whatever happens.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, if you make a big misplay, try and correct it. Try and fix the situation to be back in your favor. The game's not over yet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly that too, especially when like in baseball, like, you know, you're not expected to go like 4 for 4 at bat all the time. Like, like you're hitting like a good average, like you're probably hitting around like 250 for guys. So like 1 in 4 is like you're gonna actually like get on base with it with a hit anyway, like not counting walks. But like, so like Yu-Gi-Oh, on the other hand, like you can still make a mistake and you can still win. It's just a matter of how like the situation is, because I've made plenty of mistakes playing the game, and I've still been able to like pull my ass out of like so many matches. I'm sure you've done the exact same thing too. And
oh my god, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but like, you know, when you make a mistake, like if you beat yourself up too hard, then you kind of kill your own momentum with it, and like you don't stay cool. And then, you know, when you start playing angry, especially when you get like you're not playing as the same person anymore. You're not playing with the same skill level.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's like, again, like, then that goes back to just like, keeping a very level head when you play, like in baseball, and it's the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh. Because if you play angry, you don't play different. Like you don't think, you start getting like tunnel vision in a sense when you play angry, because you're just focused on one thing and then you don't think about anything else.
Yep, that's like spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god, these baseball parallels, I love them. I love them. Keep feeding these to me, Joe. Keep feeding these to me. So I remember that you were also at one point you're also sponsored by the Card Guys, if I recall correctly.
Oh yeah, yes
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. What you tell me more about your affiliation with them?
Card guys, going bring it back to glory days. Definitely shout out to Kyle, old card guy owner and everybody. I'm pretty sure he still does it for I think Pokemon and Dragon Ball. I think actually, but I joined the card guys not because of the money and not because of the fame. And honestly, I saw one day on YouTube randomly, scrolling through my feed that they were looking for new people, and I actually wasn't. That was my first quote unquote like team I was on. I was on ARG before then, but we didn't really affiliate ourselves as a team. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when I was like, you know what, screw it. I know all the players on the card guys at the time. I never really hung out with them or talked much individually with them, but I knew who they were from playing at events and everything. So, I'll shoot my shot. They asked for your credentials, and I gave Kyle my credentials, and he was like, you know what, you'd be a perfect fit. Let me run it by the guys and let's see what happens. I was like, not a problem. If you guys say no, I'm not going to be heartbroken. I'll still keep playing how I play my game. I just, it'd be nice to be, represented a little bit differently. So then once that happened, I became a card guy. I was one of the last card guys after we all, dismembered and branded off into our own separate ways. And I gained, one of my lifelong friends, Blair Hunter. He's one of my lifelong best friends.
Fantastic player, by the way.
Honestly, you definitely know Blair.
Yeah.
And Blair has honestly been one of my best friends since day one of me joining the card guys. He's an amazing person.
I always love his signature bucket hat that he always wears to every single event.
He used to wear that? Oh, yeah. Yep.
With like the long like black strap that would be nowhere near his chin, but he always wears it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Fantastic player. Never had the pleasure of being able to play him, but I know he has been absolutely he is one of the top players out there that maybe doesn't get spoken enough about. I know his name, of course. A lot of people know his name, but not a lot of people talk about him. In my opinion, they don't. But it's a name that probably should be spoken about more because he is definitely a killer when it comes to being able to do this.
Back when I was on the card guys, a lot of my very first event playing as a card guy, I got top 32 with the Fire King Cosmo deck.
Yeah.
And Blair and I built that deck from ground up. Him and I, that's where him and I bonded very well. We meshed ideas very well. We bounced ideas. And honestly, we grew our friendship in, our dueling, our outside of Yu-Gi-Oh friendship and our Yu-Gi-Oh friendship. Honestly, building a Cosmo deck.
Yeah, because I know you've topped regionals with it, and then you topped like Providence with it. Just quickly explain how could you combine Fire Kings with Cosmos?
It was not my idea. I have to give full credit to Jake Finney and Blair Hunter for that. When Jake was on the card guys as well, they were talking about it in the team group chat we used to have. And I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me that Fire King Island plus a big ship ends on 4 negates? I was like, what is this nonsense? So I was like, Blair, you gotta help me. Show me some combos so I can get solitaire it, and I'll give it a whirl and see if I like it. Because at the time I was playing Domain Monarch was a normal deck you can buy for budget.
Yep.
And I was playing Domain Monarch. I had played the Pendulum deck, and I just wasn't enjoying a lot of decks in that format whatsoever. And then when they showed me this deck, I was like, yo, this deck is gas. This deck is nice.
Yeah.
And then I probably solitaired combos with that deck. So many hours of just playing and playing and playing. And I understood every hand, every combo. I was like, you know what? This deck is insane. I'm playing this deck this entire format.
Yeah. So was oh my god. I thought that was a pretty a triangle format because it was BA, it was Monarchs and there was Cosmos, Pepe, and it was just so maybe we'll say a square one instead. But it was a crazy format, and I wasn't too happy with that format either. I thought that was one of the more downer formats in my mind.
I loved that format.
You loved that, yeah?
I absolutely that format was insane. So the thing is obviously Monarchs were very Stormforth was the Cosmo killer, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But honestly, you could actually play around Stormforth with Cosmo if you knew what the heck you were doing. I mean, obviously you're not going to do it every single game that it comes up, but there are times where you can play around it and just capitalize on your opponent the next turn after and just kill him with Farm Girl kind of thing. So there's times where Monarchs are going to get the best of you because Monarchs just did that. If they drew good, no deck was beating it.
Yeah.
Or if they bricked, they quote unquote they build their house with their bricks kind of thing. The old saying we used to use.
Yep.
But the thing, if Monarchs drew playable, they won 99% of their games. And outside of that, I really enjoyed that tournament. That YCS in Providence was that, we'll say the square format.
Mm-hmm.
If I did not draw chicken in game 1 and 2 at time 32, I would have two the crap on my opponent.
Oh, jeez.
But you know what? I can't complain because, I didn't draw chicken the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So, of course, karma's going to happen where you draw it when you don't want to draw it. So, like, it was not my time that, my stars didn't align.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure we've all had our history of bad beats before, of drawing
the
card that we don't want to draw. Yeah. Always happens. Like lately I've been playing GOAT format. I think I had 3 duels in a row where I've drawn like 2 Thunder Dragons in a row, and I just kind of want to like bash my head against the computer a couple times because Dueling Book likes to do that. So those bad beats happen. And again, I remember this thing when we played each other in game 3. Like
I drew 3 artifact Lancias.
Yeah, and you had to set 2. And I had this. I was talking to my friend last night because I told him that you were going to be in my podcast, and I told him about the horrendous amount of luck that was on my side and not on your side, because you drew triple Lancia, and I told him there was no opportunity at all for me to be able to trish you or to like banish any of my cards for another ritual. Like, I had no reason to actually banish any cards, and like this wasn't me being like skillful against you. This was just me being on pure dumb luck, being an idiot savant that you just happened to have the counter on me, but I just happened not to need it against you. And of course, Denko Seka was like the bane of the match, because like who was running Denko Seka that day in Necros? Nobody was. Only me. I only played 1 copy, and I happened to get the one of in the both games that I beat you in. So like I said, like that's why I always said like I beat you on pure luck, and like holy.
But you know what though? You beat me on pure luck, but you know what? Yeah. That's Yu-Gi-Oh. I accepted my defeat. I gave you a hug when we were done.
Yep,
I
we did.
You luck, and I went about my day because you know what? My stars didn't align that day.
That's exactly what happened. Like you were still awesome about it, even though like Denko Seka pretty much like took that match away from you in a sense. For people who don't know, we played a top 32 at 2015 in Toronto, the YCS. We were paired up against each other. You were one of 2 Cosmo players that made the top cut.
One.
Oh, the only one. Okay, I thought you were one of 2. Okay,
I was the first person in North America to top the Cosmo.
Yeah, exactly. So this is when Dark Destroyer didn't even exist then, just to give more context for everybody.
It was just a 4-runner deck.
Yeah, it really was, dude. I remember I did make 1 misplay against you. I remember I had an Abyss Dweller, but I put it in attack mode instead of defense mode because I should have. I knew that you had a Mirror Force, but once I summoned attack mode, I'm like, shoot, crap, I'm stuck. Because I had to get rid of your 4-runner that was in my way. So I needed a Abyss Dweller, but and that goes back to the example of even if you make a misplay, you can still win. It's just a matter of what the situation is and move forward with it. Yeah, you were absolutely wonderful. Like after that match, like we had a good conversation afterwards, and you gave me a hug. You wished me luck. You were completely like all like full sportsmanship. Like when you and I played each other, and like it was high stakes, and we know that emotions can sometimes like run a little hot like during that time. But you completely took it like with full of class. By the way, I never got to say this to you, by the way, but you took that in full class ever since we had that match.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, like I respected you. So when I found out that I had to play you in that event, I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, shoot. Like I knew that you were like a world competitor or whatnot. So like I knew of your background. Like I knew you were that great a player because my buddy Bo Tang, he also
I love Bo.
Yeah, I love Bo. I know. Also a guest of the podcast as well before. Like he was at that same worlds as you were.
Sure was.
So like I knew, like when I saw the list, like I knew you were on it, and then years later when I found out I had to play you, I'm like, crap. This is like, not that I would take any top 32 opponent lightly anyway in a YCS, because getting there is just tough enough as it is. But knowing that, like, just by name, I'm like, crap, I'm playing against Joe, and he's playing, and I don't know what he's playing, but like, God, like, I gotta be at the top of my game to beat him. And when I actually had one person play against me with Cosmo before that match too, so I at least had a little bit of experience, but I had no idea really like how to play against it, because no disrespect to that other guy, but I don't think he really played Cosmo like as well as you did, so I didn't really get like a great feel on how to actually beat it. Like
honestly, that YCS, no one really knew what my deck was doing.
Exactly, so nobody
it's
did.
Funny, so like the worst matchup for that deck was actually Satellar Knight. Mainly because Trevor was a existence that YCS.
Yeah, because it's good just like throw everything back in your hand and then just go at it.
But the thing is, I actually lost round 1 and 2 of that YCS, 2 Satellar Knights.
Yeah.
and then I won out from round 3 up until I lost to you in top 32. I was 0-2 to start my tournament, and then won every single match.
Oh, nice. How many Necross matches did you have with Cosmos?
4, 4 including, so I have 3 in Swiss, and then yours in Top Cut.
Did you beat the other 3 at least?
Yeah, I mean, if I only lost to 2 Satellar Knights in the tournament, I beat every other deck. So in that tournament, I actually remember.
Oh yeah, right.
Round 3, I played Clownblade.
Yeah.
Beat that. Round 4 was Geargia. Beat that.
Yep.
5 and 6 was Necros. 7, 8 was Shadal. And then 9 and 10 was back to back. I think it was 1 Necros and 1 BA, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
And then I played you in top 32. But outside of Satellar Knight, my matchups were actually all pretty normal for the most, besides like Geargia. But like, it was a normal tournament for me, honestly.
Yeah, because I felt like had I not have Denko Sec that entire match, like you had everything against. So you had everything to protect it. You had like Fiendish Chains up the wazoo. You had Mirror Force. You had MSC. You had everything to just stop me on whatever I would put out.
Yep. So my deck. So the thing is, my deck was not built to beat Necros. It was built to beat Shadal. Like, Shadal is actually a very popular deck for that format.
Yeah.
But because they just got the El Shadal, they just got that card. So it was a very popular deck because obviously they can play around Valkyries as well, and then drop a construct or annoy Tillis or something, and really take out Necros from the match.
Yeah.
And so the 2 Shadal guys I played, I was like, you know, I blinded second, so I think I lost maybe a couple dice rolls that whole tournament. But the two Shadals I happened to win. I was like, you guys go first, go ahead. And they were like Shadal Fusion. I was like, oh, this match is easy.
Yeah.
And like no one knew when to fusion summon. No one knew what to get with like Falco. Like it was a very easy Shadal matchup because no one knew how to play against Cosmo with that deck.
Yeah.
And,
nobody knew.
Even the Necros matches, like no one really knew. Like no one knew what to do. It was great.
Yep. Yeah. All I knew was that Forerunner was the biggest monster that you did, and pretty much the only realistic way that you could get rid of it was if you had to beat it over with like Decisive or Trish. Obviously, you want to try to Trish, but then again, with the way your deck you're running 3 Fiendish Chain, you're running everything possible not to allow Trish to happen, and nobody's running 2 Trish, so nobody's using Trish to protect Trish. Which you knew exactly, so that's why like Fiendish Chain was your huge insurance policy to be able to stop me. It's just you just had unfortunate luck that game 1 because I remember you played Cosmo Town to bring back a farm girl, a banished farm girl, shelf the back into your deck, and you just needed a spell or trap card or something that you could just commit to the world. You do another farm girl, it's like crap. You're like in Trish range, but it's like okay, I still got Fiendish Chain, and then that's where I dropped Denko second. It's like well, then that's where everything went to hell for you because you just had that one stroke of unlock. See, I'm objective about my own matches. I'm willing to tell you if I beat you by luck in that one. That's why eventually we have to have a rematch for ourselves to just kind of get my fluky little win out of the way and let you have a shot at revenge. Of course. But either way, though, that was a really fun event because that was my first, and unfortunately, it's my only YCS top. So that kind of sucks. Unlike you, who's had several and been to Worlds, by the way. So that's
I lost count.
Yeah, I mean that's a good problem to have, wouldn't it be?
It is, but sometimes people ask, and it's like, count these. But actually, it's funny. I counted the other day because one of the locals I go to wanted to put like a little, not like a plaque, but they wanted to put like a bounty for a local type thing.
Yeah.
So I actually went back and counted. Because I don't ever like talking about myself on a pedestal. I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
But I have 1 national invite and 1 world's invite. I have 13 YCS top 32 or betters. I have obviously a PBG second place, an ARG victory, 5 other ARG top 16 or betters. What's the other one? ARG. Then I mean, you want to count the Goofy Gauntlet? We'll count that too. But I have 58 regional top 8s.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge, and like that's not something like I could like easily find online. Like I was trying to like I'm trying to like deep dive to find like all this information about you, and then when I see it on Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Decks, I'm like, no, he's topped way more events than this. No way. I've heard more than that.
Yeah, no, regionals I stopped counting at I was 23 or 24.
Yeah,
but then it's funny. Me and one of my good buddies, Will Rodriguez, who's another great player from Connecticut. Him and I theory a lot. He has like I think 6 or 7 tops. Like he's a very consistent player as well.
Yeah.
And 19. I was like, no way. There's no way you're at 19. I definitely have a lot more than you do. I had to go and like kind of go through the archives of my mind and all the regionals I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a lot. But when I, kind of really thought back to like which decks did I top with, I kind of pieced it all together. I was at 57, and then the last regional before COVID, I had top with Salomon Gray, so I was at 58.
Yeah, you're talking about top 8s, just to be clear.
Top 8.
Yeah,
8
exactly.
Yeah, I'm not counting top 16 or 32.
Yeah,
top 8 where you get the prizing.
Yeah, because I've had so many people that have like when I just get my invite, but I don't top 8. It's like, oh, congratulations, but like, yeah, but it's just an invite. Like, I'm not too excited. I can understand why other people would be excited.
Sure. I mean, I'm not happy about it. People are like, oh, you did great. You got 13th. Well, to me, that's just, one extra round of I lost where I could have won. But, honestly, some people who do take those, very happily, I'm still proud of them. Sometimes that's their only accomplishment. For an example, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't ever want to rain on their parade.
Yep, exactly.
If they're happy with their top 16 and want to do a deck profile, by all means, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. It's just if you just ever ask me personally, it's like, is top 16 a top and a top 8 for a regional? I'm like, no, top 8. Yeah,
no way.
Like, I'm sure that, like, for instance, let's take like you, for example, with all your YCS tops. Like, I'm sure you kind of get like a little bit numb to like you get like your 11th, 12th top and whatnot, as opposed to like if I were to go like on top another YCS because I've only had one, like I'm gonna be like, really happy and whatnot. I'll probably want to like break out a couple beers and like have like a big night with my buddies, something like that, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it's their own personal accomplishments and whatnot, of course. But I still want to at least put things into perspective on where like what's the accomplishment here for whatnot. Like again, I'm not going to count top 16 if our top 8 is a regional, but if that's your own personal accomplishment, awesome, great. Not going to take that away from you, but
exactly.
I refuse to say top 16 is a top. That's I
agree completely.
Yeah, I'm just glad at least I can say I have like double-digit top, like regional tops at least, and a whole lot of like other like special event tops, so like to kind of help offset that a little bit, so I can at least say like, okay, I've won like this many like Yu-Gi-Oh days, I've won this many like this many extravaganza, stuff like that to kind of say to offset it, and then I've judged like a lot in the middle of it too.
That's where I first met you, was when you were judging.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of people have known me from my judging, but some people seem to forget that like I love playing more than I love judging. Judging is also just like something I like to do as well. Sometimes I use judging as like a way of like I don't like the format, or I don't have a deck, or like I don't feel very confident in this format. I'm just gonna like cower out and go judge or something like that. That's what what I like to do, because like not every format is like plays to like your strengths, and it's different. Like it's a completely different game every single format, and I'm sure that we've had success, like a lot more success in certain formats than we had in other formats.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just the nature of the game. It keeps evolving, and again, like going back to full circle from why I wanted to have you on, because that you've been a very consistent player in this past decade, and you've had like great success from 10 years ago, like 11 years ago, up until now, and playing Yu-Gi-Oh. And I said you want a Switch, you want an Xbox, so like I'm really glad that you're still being able to enjoy the game as much as you can, like even when all this is happening, because like I see so many vets kind of drop off a little bit, or just kind of don't want to play anymore, and then who we've known for like many years now. It's like it's good to see like another face that's been around like as long as I have, being able to play this game.
Yeah, no, I think Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely a big not outlier. It's a big how can I put this? Like a big the hell word I'm thinking of. I'm gonna use the word getaway because I can't think of a right word. But a big getaway from my normal daily life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I can go home and relax, have a good dinner and kind of just like watch some Yu-Gi-Oh on YouTube, or watch some on Dueling Book, and maybe play a match and just escape my normal reality per se.
Yeah.
That means a lot. To a normal for my job, I work with in the aerospace industry. So like my job, there's some days where I just want to kill someone.
Yep.
And so when I get home from work, relaxing, and I kind of just want to just vent and get away from normal life.
Yeah, it's your way of decompressing in a sense.
Yeah, I mean it's a very believe it, it's a very big stress reliever.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go back. So after I got done with college, and got injured in baseball and couldn't play for a while,
Mm-hmm.
Yu-Gi-Oh basically got me out of depression,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of got me to like be myself again. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely thank Yu-Gi-Oh for that, and will always be in its debt. And I won't say it saved me because I wasn't down that kind of path in life.
Yeah.
Don't take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But it definitely shaped me to be my normal self, and it's definitely helped me over the last decade to be me.
Is that kind of the reason why you've like decided to like still stay in the game for so long, like even up until today, not counting breaks, because we've all taken breaks at some point in time in the
Oh,
game.
yeah. I mean, yes and no. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not like I mean, no one really ever retires and quits for
Yeah.
they say they'll do it, but do
That's
they ever really do it?
yeah. That's always the joke. People always say, "Oh yeah, I quit
Right.
Yu-Gi-Oh." It's like
I
what
mean, the
it's
thing is that some people do retire, they do quit. Good for them. Good for them for finding another passion and
Mhm.
another hobby, that they enjoy, and that's amazing. Good for them, and I'm proud of them.
Mhm.
But for me personally, I wouldn't necessarily say it's because it's my quote unquote anti-drug or my anti-depression or anything like that.
Mhm.
I just really enjoy the community and the friends I've made over Yu-Gi-Oh.
Mhm.
So a lot of my daily conversations do have my normal friends outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, my baseball friends, and then if I have a conversation, with like Dominic Couch the other night, we had a conversation on the phone for like 2 hours.
Mhm. Yep.
Like it's just lifelong friends who I wouldn't have met through normal day-to-day life, but I met through Yu-Gi-Oh.
Mhm.
I still treasure them and those memories and moments because Yu-Gi-Oh brought us together.
Mhm.
So
Exactly that.
yeah, it's like would I have ever met them without Yu-Gi-Oh? No, but these are some of my friends who are going to be lifelong friends.
Mhm.
And
Exactly
I
that.
have to thank Yu-Gi-Oh for that. And in hindsight, 2020, yeah, I'm kind of keeping Yu-Gi-Oh around to keep my friends, maybe make new ones. But if I retire today from Yu-Gi-Oh, I wouldn't pick up a deck ever again.
Mhm.
No, I wouldn't be afraid to not play ever again. I would still have my friends.
Yeah.
That's mainly why I play. If the game still is evolving and going strong, I might take another break. When my son's born and wait till he's a couple months or a year old to start trying to play again. But you know what? If I happen to not play ever again,
Mhm.
I'm content with my quote unquote legacy. I'm not
Yep.
gonna dwell on it. Yeah, I never won a YCS or won nationals, but you know what? I'm content that I've marked myself as a positive role model for other players, and being consistent is a big thing with me. I've tried to do well every event. I try to be the best player I can be, and at the end of the day, it's a card game.
Yeah.
So whether or not you do well or not, it's a card game. You got to have fun with it.
Yeah, you really do, and that's like kind of a big reason why I don't want to drop the game. It's kind of like similar to what you have because of like all the friends that I've made, how much joy it's brought me throughout my entire life. It's been like this consistent. It's probably the most consistent hobby that I've ever had, maybe next to video games, we'll say, but
Sure,
like not as. But I would say I'm more hardcore, like competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh than I would say video games. But
sure,
it's brought me so much joy. Again, as you said, it's done it for everybody. You make so many new friends. You get to go to many new places, and like it really does change your life. Like I would say, if argue for the better. At least for me, it gets me out of the house.
sure.
It
Yep,
gets me to meet people. It's done so much for me. So it's like I don't want to drop that because of what I know, like the positives that this game can bring for me. It's like I don't want to drop it. I only want to stop playing the game if either A, I no longer have fun in it, or B, if I just don't have the time to be able to play it anymore. And
sure,
I kind of hope that you maybe find some time that when you're having your newborn son. I understand that a lot of times going to be eaten up when you have your first one, but when you get that time again, hopefully you can still have some time for Yu-Gi-Oh at least.
we'll see how many more victims I can make in my dueling career.
Sometimes I always feel like that list is never enough.
It depends. There's some people on my list I want to take off, but you know what? I'm not going to name any names, but they know who they are.
Well, just out of curiosity, because it's me, am I on that list?
No, not at all, David.
I still will have to give you a redemption match either way, just because of like the sheer way I want it.
Oh,
I will
that's
I
totally
will give you a
fine.
redemption. Well, for sure, I know we'll meet again for sure, like in real life, because it's
Oh,
been a
I'm
couple
I'm
years just
certain.
because of
I'm
it.
certain of that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we will have a lot of fun when we get to play each other again. And I'm again, congratulations on the coming birth of your newborn son, and
Thank you.
and I hope you had a wonderful birthday last week. So, Joe, it's been an honor and it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to catch up with you again, especially during this pandemic where we just kind of haven't been able to see each other in a while, and we go to like a lot of events since you're located in the kind of like northeast United States, where I'm like southeast Canada, so we're fairly close, like on the border. So we would see each other at a lot of events. But wonderful to be able to talk to you again, at least, even though we can't see each other well. And I appreciate you coming on my podcast.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Any shout outs you want to give before we head on out?
Definitely want to shout out my girlfriend. She's been a big, lover to death. She's having my birthday, my child. Been with her. Our 2-year anniversary is actually tomorrow.
Oh, yay! Nice.
So, and she's doing that, and she's taking her test. But through thick and thin, she's been a big supporter of my Yu-Gi-Oh hobby, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that. So definitely thank you to my girlfriend first and foremost. Definitely another shout out. You, of course, had me on here. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Friend, so definitely. And then, every other duelist, for that matter, if you're playing through COVID or not, I'm glad people are still keeping Yu-Gi-Oh involved somehow. The game's always going to evolve, and no matter what are good, it's good to see people still playing. You know what I mean? Like, you could be the best duelist in the world or the worst, but you know what? If you're playing the game and playing it for the right reasons, shout out to you.
Absolutely, man. So again, praying that you have yourself a very healthy and wonderful son when that comes time, and good luck again to Michelle, who's doing her test tomorrow. Hope she nails it. Hope she gets it, and hope that little vacation that you're having right now will end off on a positive note.
Hopefully it goes all as planned.
Awesome, my friend. That is former world's competitor Joe Bogli, multiple YCS topper, here joining me on the podcast. Joe, thank you so much again for joining me on the podcast. You have yourself a wonderful night, and best of luck with you with having a new family in the future.
Thank you very much, David. You as well.
All right, have a good night.
You too. We're gonna go back to Connecticut tomorrow after her exam.
Okay, got it. Has she already written it, or she already gone, or what's up?
No, she's taking it tomorrow around noontime. So fingers crossed she passes it.
Yeah, good. I mean, good luck to her, man. I mean, it's a nice step forward for her, for sure.
Yeah, she says thank you. She can hear you.